In the pre-dawn hours of September 12, 1814, the Royal Navy landed nearly 4,700 soldiers, Marines, and sailors on the shores of the North Point Peninsula. The invasion force, commanded by Major General Robert Ross, sacked and burned Washington, D.C. on August 22nd with little resistance from American forces. By 7 o'clock a.m., the British were on the move towards its objective, Baltimore. One of Great Britain's objectives was to destroy the shipbuilding infrastructure in Fells Point, the home base for American privateers that preyed on British shipping. General Ross's plan was to advance north up the Patapsco Neck and assault Baltimore from the east. American scouts at a local farm called Todd's Inheritance observed the British landing earlier in the morning and sent the intelligence to the commander of the defense of Baltimore, Major General Samuel Smith. General Smith supervised the construction of earthworks arrayed in a semicircle from Bel Air Road to the waterline at Fells Point. He ordered Brigadier General John Stricker south with 3,000 men to slow the British advance. Later that morning, General Ross and his staff demanded that the owner of Gorsuch Farm, just north of Edgemere, feed them breakfast. The British advance guard encountered American troops about 2 miles away, and General Ross, breakfast interrupted, quickly rode to the sound of brisk gunfire. Ross wanted to assess this unexpected skirmish and exposed himself to enemy fire, receiving a musket round through his right arm into his chest. He died shortly after. General Stricker prepared to engage the British at the narrowest part of the Patapsco Neck and reduce his vulnerability to flank attacks. He believed that Back River protected his left flank and rear, while Bear Creek protected his right. Colonel Arthur Brooke took command of the British force and advanced to engage the Americans waiting for them. At approximately 3 p.m., the battle commenced. The Americans, mostly Maryland militia, engaged the battle-hardened British, veterans of the Napoleonic Wars, at 100 yards. The British, however, were able to turn Stricker's left flank. General Stricker led a disciplined retreat to the defenses of Baltimore on Hampstead Hill. Colonel Brooke did not pursue and camped his exhausted troops for the night, who suffered through a rainy night without coats and tents. The British advanced to Baltimore along the Philadelphia Road and arrived within sight of Baltimore's defenses, surprised at how strong the fortifications were and how many American troops occupied them. They waited for the Royal Navy to neutralize Fort McHenry and sail into the inner harbor to provide naval gunfire support for the assault. The bombardment failed. Colonel Brooke ended plans to assault the Baltimore defensive works. At 3 a.m. on the morning of September 14th, he ordered his force to march back to North Point and board the transport ships. The Americans, and in particular Maryland soldiers and civilians, inflicted 2 defeats on the British, which led to the peace treaty signed on December 24th, 1814, ending the War of 1812.